Cody and I are doing a quick hit. Tytus Howard is out for the season. Man, how does this impact the Houston Texans over the course of the next few games to close out the year?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, Texans fans, to this quick hit edition of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If this is your first time listening to the Locked On Texans podcast, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you to all of our returning listeners lending your ear for another episode as Cody and I talk Texans. I am your host, Johnson Sports Guy Hickman, football analyst for the Locked On Texans podcast. And, of course, as always, Sports Illustrated's own credential media member for the Houston Texans, Cody Davis. This is not a full show, so a lot of the, whatever, we're getting right to.
It's a Thursday. Make sure you check out the crossover show for the full installment of Locked On Texans.
On Broncos. That's going to be fun. I tried to drop as many weed jokes, idioms I could, but we're going to focus on Tytus Howard. Was announced Wednesday that he will be out for the remainder of the year. Cody, you had an opportunity, as that was announced, you had an opportunity to be at the NRG Stadium during that time. Just what's going on? Take us through that, and how can paint the picture for the fans and listeners, and we'll talk about like how can Houston get over this and our initial reactions to this.
Well, it's the same story that we've been dealing with for this entire season, ever since the second week of training camp, especially with the offensive line. It is another blow, another major injury to the Houston Texans offensive front. Tytus Howard going down. This is the second time this season that he has sustained a major injury. Remember, the second week of training camp, I believe it was like 2-3 days after Scott Quisenberry went down with his ACL MCL tear, that Tytus Howard sustained a hand injury. It required surgery. He missed all the rest of training camp, had missed all of preseason and the first 4 games of the regular season. And look, I understand that Tytus Howard, especially with him coming back playing left guard, he wasn't having the best season. But at the same time, just having that veteranship, just having that experience, just having that continuity that him and the rest of the 4 other guys had built over the last, let's say, 4 games, where the offensive line not only did their best job to protect CJ, but we also saw that rushing attack elevate, especially in those 2 games when they started Devin Singletary. That offensive line looked its best that it looked all season long. However, John, with Tytus Howard going down, first of all, let me say this. This is why on Tuesday's show I said I'm going to say this was with caution, because we all saw it. You sat right there next to me inside NRG Stadium when Tytus Howard did go down with that knee injury.
Brought the card out for him.
Yeah, he limped to the blue medical tent. It was like, okay, brought the card out for him. I remember after the game on Sunday, I did see him walking around the locker room. He had that left leg wrapped up in like a black sleeve, I think it was. And it was like a positive and negative, because it brought me back to what I saw about a month ago with Eric Murray when he went down with his respective knee injury, to where he left the field kind of scary. You saw him walking around the locker room, and then the next couple of days it was announced that he would be out for the rest of the season with a knee injury. Same thing happened with Tytus Howard. Here is what Coach DeMeco Ryans had to say about the loss of Tytus Howard.
Yeah, Tytus has done a good job of battling through. Appreciate Tytus's toughness and trying to push through and play, through some difficult injuries there. Tytus is a fighter. Appreciate him, and he did a good job for us. But as we've been throughout this entire year, as we've done this next man up, we still have to shuffle some guys around there, but our O-line has done a really good job of having – unfortunately, we've had to deal with this before, but we've done a good job of shuffling things around and the guys just working well together as a unit. And for me, it's always whoever steps in, can you just play to the best of your ability, right? And the other 10 guys play well around you, we'll make it work. It does not weigh on our team, right? It's part of football, right? You lose guys. Guys get injured all the time. All right, we don't focus on or harp on. We feel for our brother who's went down, but we still have to move forward. We still have to go and compete and play our best.
There's two things I want to point out with what Coach D'Amico Ryans had to say. First and foremost, I do wonder how long Tytus Howard has been playing with this knee injury. Because as you heard it, he said Tytus Howard has battled through injuries. Tytus Howard has pushed through, what lets me know that this is possibly something that he has been dealing with throughout the whole entire season. But the second most important thing I think everybody needs to keep in mind is the fact that the Texans haven't announced what type of injury Tytus Howard is dealing with in his knee. And that's very important because, John, if it's something like a meniscus tear or something like that he can't play through, the recovery time is a lot shorter, which means that he will be ready once you start OTAs, the spring practices with this team. That means he would definitely be ready for 2024. However, if it is, and I'm hoping that this is not the case, and nobody is telling me this, but if it is an ACL tear, that can take up to a year, and then the Texans are really going to be in a situation of how do you move forward with your offensive line, with arguably your second best offensive lineman on the shelf.
First and foremost, man, speedy recovery to Tytus, man. He's a guy that I think Tytus has not had the best of situations coming into the NFL, back and forth to different positions across that offensive line. And then you look at last year, him being his, coming out party, stonewalling guys like Jason Garrett, stonewalling some of the best edge defenders that he went up against last year. And he earned that $18 million from his pay. Now, there was times where I would go back and forth to say whether or not Houston would, maybe move on from him or not. But based off last year, he was a very good pass protector at that right tackle position. And so he's a good guy. He's always, doing something in the community. He's a great guy. Speedy recovery to Tytus Howard. Now, I'm going to look at – I mainly want to focus on how will this impact the Houston Texans moving forward. Laremy Tunsil. And let's look at the big picture here.
He's dealing with knee injuries himself.
Exactly. Laremy Tunsil does not have the healthiest of knees right now. So every week we're going to see him on the injury report, probably on Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to see questionable because Houston is giving him time to rest. But I still think that is a monitoring situation. They're monitoring, okay, can you go? And he's been able to go. And he's been able to kind of be somewhat of himself, but you can see the difference. If you've seen prime Laremy Tunsil, you see the difference now. And so that's a factor. Was Tytus Howard the best of guards? Absolutely not. But I think there was some familiarity there between Tunsil, Howard, and Dieter. Now that's gone. Dieter's still going to be a starting center unless Houston looks to move Juice Scruggs over to center and Dieter over to left guard. Mason and Fant, I think they're going to be okay. But I think the big picture right now is how will Houston go about this left guard position? And I honestly think that they should look towards just go ahead and inserting Juice Scruggs. I'm going to take it a step further by saying I think that, and when I say this is no way me being, this is not no ill intent. This is not me being malicious. This is me speaking towards what the Houston Texans for this year have not been able to do well outside of 2 games. I think that this is a blessing in disguise for Houston to get a balanced out offensive line, putting Juice Scruggs in at left guard. Juice Scruggs, I think, is a much better run blocker, and I also think that he gives you the same amount of talent or effort as a pass blocker. So I look at the offensive line now that I think could benefit from this, and especially going up against the Denver Broncos, who right now are allowing a little bit over 155 yards per game on the ground. This is a game where the Houston Texans can look towards helping out their quarterback because, guys, right now, this is what's going on for the Houston Texans. Wade, Shaq Griffin, we'll talk about that on the Friday show. They have kicker issues. Tytus Howard is on IR now. Tank Dell is dealing with an injury right now. This injury all across this. And we can also mention that there was a couple of moments Sunday where, Cody, I don't know about you, but I kind of was like, I don't know if CJ's going to get immediately up. He took some hits Sunday.
Yeah, I remember.
And he was limping Sunday on and off the field at times, right? I also think that's a big reason why in that last drive, we didn't see him take off a lot because I thought that he was kind of limping, and that was a lingered issue from early in the game due to the amount of hits he was taking. So this is a game where Houston can really exploit the run. And I think Drew Scruggs will give them that support. And also, I'm going to take it a step further by saying this. Did Tytus Howard earn his money based off last season?
Yes,
Absolutely.
he did.
Absolutely. I'm not even going to question that. But moving forward, is this a situation that Houston should monitor? You got one tackle who has knee issues as of right now, and Laramie Tunsil will probably get that cleaned up in the offseason. Now you have another tackle who's having issues, who's now injured on IR and wasn't the best this year due to being misplaced. But you also have another tackle in George Fant who has played extremely well. And I know that he's 31. And I know this was kind of a shock, lightning in the bottle type of season probably for George Fant. Because I remember saying in the past, he was not good. But does it make sense for Houston to look next offseason to see whether or not maybe some restructuring of deals, of contracts can happen so they can kind of maneuver a little bit more or look to possibly move on? That may be premature. It may be a premature thought, and I understand that, but that is a thought of mine, my own personal opinion. This is not Cody's. This is not what nobody else is telling me. This is mine. But I think moving forward, man, for Houston, this could possibly help them out in terms of being able to run the ball more effectively, efficiently, to end off the last, 5 games left, 6 games left.
6 games left.
This could be huge for Houston in terms of just being able to do that. Now, where it hurts Houston right now, Tytus Howard is on IR. Jared Patterson is on IR. Khalil Zaire is on IR. Kendrick Green is on IR. There is no King and Green. So you got the 2 Greens. They are on IR. Your backup is Josh Jones for left guard. Your backup is Charlie Heck. And then you can also give Josh Jones some run over at tackle. Your depth right now is not favorable whatsoever. That is where it gets very sticky for Houston because they cannot afford another injury to that offensive line. And giving credit where credit is due, considering all things, this has been a good offensive line performance through this point, considering this starter wasn't playing, this starter wasn't playing, this had to be makeshift, this was going in and out, this is the remix to Ignition. A lot was going on for this offensive line. So kudos to them up front, man. Them young men, them boys, them grown men did a very good job of protecting their quarterback this year. There was like 3 or 4 games straight when they did not allow a sack. They cannot afford an injury moving forward. And I would not be surprised if maybe next week we're seeing Houston maybe work out some offensive linemen to make sure that they have talent and depth at that offensive line position across the board. That was the Locked On Texans quick hit. We got to do more of these, Cody. We can just take an isolated topic and conversation and just talk Texans to you guys. Please be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Guys, it is going to be December soon. Let's try to have fun. Let's try to stay safe.
In the Texan Twitter streets.
Let's all get along. One loss shouldn't break down the franchise.
One loss in a season that's been nothing but positive and fun.
Yeah.
But as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, it's Cody COTYDAVIS_24. Tytus Howard, get well soon. We're rooting for you, my guy, and hopefully we will see you soon.
Definitely rooting for the young man. It's definitely speedy recovery. And by no means, please, definitely deserves every penny that he gets and he got. But I know this is a business, and I think business decisions in the NFL has always shown us to happen. But speedy recovery to him. Blessings to him and his family. And above all, just get back to the game the right way. Don't rush it. Recover your body first.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.